Hey adventurers, today is going to be my wrap up for the month of February. Technically I'm filming this on February 28th because that's when I have time to film it, and so there may be some more reading that yet happens this month, but I'm not going to finish anything else, I don't think. I highly doubt that. The only thing that I could might be Two Towers, and it's not going to happen. I know that because of how fast I read and all that stuff. So anyways, let's go through my list. I accidentally somehow read 11 books or finished 11 books in February. I have no idea how, but I did. And so let's go through. Well, okay, I think I do know how actually, and I'll explain some of that as I come across them. A lot of short books, and at least 3 that were mostly completed in January, and so they were just kind of holdovers into February, but still, that's a lot of books that I completed in February. Anyways, let's get into this. The first book that I finished was The Burning White by Brent Weeks. This is book 5 of the Lightbringer series. This is the final book in the series, so I have completed another series this year, which is great. It feels really good to be actually making progress through series and finishing some up. Yeah, I'm very, very glad to have done that. As far as The Burning White goes, I really, really loved this book for the first 3/4 or so of it. The vast majority of this book I really loved. I was thinking that I completely did not understand why people have such a problem with that 5th book in the series. And then I understood it. The way that final quarter, I guess, wraps up, the grand finale of it all wraps up, is kind of anticlimactic in some ways, and it's not terribly impactful. It's not terrible. It doesn't really ring terribly true, and it's kind of a feeling of removal of all stakes from the entire series. And because of that, I totally get why people dislike the book and why they think that one book ruins the entire series. I disagree. I don't think that it ruins it. It is definitely not the way that I would have preferred to have seen that story completed. A little bit more of a keeping of the stakes that were being set up throughout the book, that would have been really beneficial, and I think that would have been a lot stronger. There's some very minor things that could have happened at the end of the series to bring back that impact and make that impact come a lot stronger. That being said, the things were kind of set up from the earlier books in the series in order to come to pass in the way that they did, and so I have less of a problem with it than I think a lot of people do, but I totally understand why people dislike that final book. It's some interesting choices that Weeks makes, for sure. Not horrible, but definitely not the best book in the series. It could have been, had they kept with the had Weeks kept with the quality of that first 3/4 of the book, and then all the way through to the end, and paid off those promises that he was making from the beginning slightly differently. And it absolutely could have been the best book in the series. Overall, I don't think that series is a favorite of all time for me. I really like a lot of what's going on with it. I really like a lot of what Weeks is doing in that series, and it is a good series. But I don't think that it's the best ever, or in my top 10 list, fantasy series or anything like that. All right. Then I continued with the Aftermath series by Chuck Wendig. This is a Star Wars series, so this is Aftermath. Life Dead is the second book in the trilogy, and I was honestly I was looking for a Splinter of the Mind's Eye on audiobook, and they didn't have it, but there was Aftermath Life Debt on audio, and so I was like, okay, let's do this one since it's a series that I've already started. Let's try and get through this and wrap this up. This was aggressively mediocre. There just wasn't a whole lot of good stuff in this book. Nothing was necessarily particularly bad, but it just wasn't very strong of a story, of a book. Of course, it's hard for me because there's so many cool things that could be done in telling the story of the aftermath of the fall of the Empire and the rebuilding of or the building of the New Republic, and all that could go into that. There's a fascinating story to be told there, very political. You could tell some thriller aspects, which I know Wendig is a thriller author, and so there's a whole lot that could be done, and I wish that he would dig more into his skill as a thriller and horror writer than into this trying to write for Star Wars. I wish he'd just write the book that is his style in the Star Wars universe, and I don't feel like this is that. The characters are boring. I really don't care a whole lot about anybody that's in these books or anything that's going on. It's unfortunate because it's not like it's bad. These books aren't bad. They're just not good either. They're very, very middling. At least the second book was worse than the first book, for sure, in that aspect. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad that I have read the second book in this trilogy, and I do plan to complete the trilogy just so I can say that I've completed it. But if that third book is not significantly better, they will probably get unhauled from my shelves, because as much as I like Star Wars and as much as I like having Star Wars books on my shelves, these ones just aren't as good as I would like them to be, and I'm not likely to ever read them again. Then I also wrapped up The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R. Tolkien. This is the first part of The Lord of the Rings. I'm doing an immersion read for these, meaning I'm listening to the audiobook at the same time as I'm reading the book with my eyes, or looking at the words with my eyes. I don't exactly know how that works, but it's Lord of the Rings. It's incredible. I try to find a new way to, or a different way to read the books each year, so that it's not just the same thing every single year, as fantastic as that would be. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I just like to explore some other avenues as well, see if I can catch something different from the books. And the book is so good. It's so fantastic. I do like the Rob Inglis, is that his name? Or not the author, the narrator is Rob Inglis, yeah. And I do like his narration quite a bit. He's not as consistent with his voices as some other narrators, like Andy Serkis, for example, who is extremely consistent with the voice that he gives to each of the individual characters. Inglis is not nearly as careful. I do like his interpretation of the songs quite a bit. I think he does a great job with the music, but also just anytime I get to reread these books, it's so much fun. It's so good. There's so much just enjoyable storytelling. I get to enjoy different aspects of the story than I ever have before, and just every time I'm experiencing it, I'm seeing, let's look at it from kind of this different angle, and it's just fantastic. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this. I'm not really reviewing Lord of the Rings again at the moment or anything like that, but it is fantastic. I love Lord of the Rings. It's easily my favorite book of the year, or easily my favorite book of all time still. That includes The Hobbit, and you can choose which one is going to be my favorite, because I bounce back and forth daily as it is. And then I listened to Thrice by Andrew D. Meredith. This is his first book in the Needle and Leaf series. I've wanted to get through this series because it's Meredith, and I have been loving Meredith's writing and his books and everything. And I also want to get to it before the final book in the trilogy comes out this year. Sometime, I think in March is when the Kickstarter might go live or something like that. I think that's the plan. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not positive. I'm not in control of any of that, but I do believe that's the plan for it. I might be wrong. I could very possibly be wrong, but I love Meredith's writings. I love his books. This one was fantastic. I really enjoyed Thrice. I really had a good time with it. It was very fun. It's very much different than I was expecting it to be in a lot of ways. Not bad different, good different, in that I thought what I'd heard about this book is that it's about a man taking care of his adoptive son, essentially his ward or his adoptive son, as they're on the run from people trying to get them, because the boy is very magical. And that's what I had heard about the series, and that's exactly what the book is. But also there's so much more to it, as I should have expected, knowing that it's a Meredith book. There's so much heart, there's so much character, there's so much magic, so much just charm to the series, and in a way that I was not expecting to be, even though I should have been. I know Meredith. I know his writing, and I should have expected that, and I didn't. And so I went into it and just had a great time with book one. I can't wait to listen to book two. Probably we'll listen to book two in March, and that way I can be ready for book three whenever book three does come out. And so, yeah, I'm very excited. Just fantastic. These are just fantastic books. I'm very glad that I have the physical book, but I will have to get the other two physical books as well, just so that I have all three of them on my shelves. And yeah, so good. Meredith, he's probably my favorite living author at this time, and yeah, deserves to be among the greats, because his works are fantastic. Then I listened to Jayber Crow by what's his name? I should know his name off the top of my head, but I don't. Wendell-Berry is the author's name. Jayber Crow is I guess maybe it's kind of part of a series or something like that, or maybe just all his books are set in the same world or something like that. I don't know. I'm not really worried about that. I don't even know how to describe what Jayber Crow is, what genres that book falls into. It's literary fiction. It's a kind of, apparently it's a semi-autobiographical but fictional retelling of Barry's life or something like that, from what I've heard. I'm going to have to do some digging on that before my review, because I'm not positive on all those things. But from what I've heard, from what I understand, it's something like that. And it's a fantastic story. I was actually recommended this one. I was recommended this by my grandpa after he heard that I really enjoyed Cannery Row by John Steinbeck back in November, I believe that was. And so he said, if you like Cannery Row, you should try Jayber Crow. And so I picked up Jayber Crow. I finally got back around to it in February, and it was fantastic. I didn't know what to expect. It was kind of slow going through it, and it was very much just the character's life. It's another book about life, which I find that I really enjoy. It's very atmospheric once again, and I've mentioned many times how much I enjoy that. And just yeah, a book about faith, about let's see if I can find it, because I was messaging Liam about it a little bit. What are the things that I said about it? Because let's see. I said, it's a fictional, semi-autobiographical story by Wendell Berry. Fantastic book about life, heaven, growth, etc. That's kind of the best explanation that I've been able to give for the book as of yet. And I had a fantastic time with it. It's a very, very strong contender for book of the month. But we'll talk about which book I think is actually my book of the month later, and also do my book of the month short. Make sure that gets filmed as well. So anyways, it's fantastic. It's really good book. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy this just historical, modern, just literary, telling somebody's life story type thing, and it's so good. I really enjoyed it. Had a great time with it. But I don't think I can say a whole lot more about it, because I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it. The next one, this was a recommendation by Liam from Liam's Lyceum, and he was also kind enough to send me the book. And so that is The Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit by Charles Stanford. This is Two Tales of a Young Carrier of Civilization. This is a fantasy world, but there's stories about a character who is trying or learning to be a jackrabbit, which in this world, that is the term that they use for like a mail carrier, basically. And so he's a mailman. This is the story about a mailman in a fantasy world, and it's so good. It's so just, again, I don't know how to really describe this book. In a lot of ways, it's a book about life, just like Jayber Crow was. But it's a lot about growth. There's a lot of coming of age that goes with it, because the character is very young. Two stories. One happens when he's in his tweens or something like that, so 12, 13-ish, and then one, I think the second story is when he's 17, something like that. And so there's a lot of growth, a lot of character growth, a lot of him trying to learn and understand himself as you go. And so definitely a coming of age story in a lot of ways. It's just fascinating the way that Stanford writes. His choice of words it's not purple by any means. It's not overly flowery or overly descriptive by any means, but you still feel that atmosphere of this work. And that anytime you're able to add atmosphere to a story, the more atmosphere you can add, the more I'm going to enjoy it, it seems. So that in and of itself was enough to make me love it. But also the story was so fascinating. The first story is shorter than the second one, and I got to the end and I just sat thinking about it. I was like, that's so fascinating. That's so interesting. And then I went and read the second one and got to the end and I'm like, oh, that's so fascinating. It's so interesting. And yeah, I really don't have a lot of ways to articulate my thoughts on this book yet. I need to sit down and write out a review. But man, I knew it was going to be something special, because Liam has read it and reread it several times and talked about it several times since he first read it. And I knew that I was going to see something in it. I knew that there was something there because of how much Liam likes it, and very, very glad that I read this. It's just fantastic. I definitely recommend that people pick this up. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it at the moment. Once I get my review out months from now, you'll hear some more thoughts, and hopefully I'll be able to articulate my thoughts a little bit better. Then I've been trying to, this kind of an aside, but it's context for why I picked up these next things. I have been trying to write a little bit more, and I've been trying to learn about short stories and learn about creating how to build an ending. This is why you see me, if you've watched my author interviews, this is why you see me asking those types of questions to authors. And so part of that process has been me trying to actually sit down and create a story, add that ending, create that ending. So I wrote one short story, what I did is I got a list of prompts or not prompts, like parameters more so, and asked one of my coworkers to fill out the parameters, and then I would write a short story using those things as inspiration in order for me to tell the story. And I did that with one of them, and I sat down and wrote that story. It's short. It's like probably under 2,000 words, something like that. And it might grow as I edit, or might shrink. I don't know. I may go. I don't know when I'm going to go back and edit it. But I did sit down and write that, and it was successful, and it was really fun, and it was like a science fantasy type story. So that was fun, and I wrote that one. And then I was like, okay, that worked really well. I'm going to ask a different coworker to do the same things. These are the coworkers who understand stories and like stories and storytelling and stuff like that. So I feel confident asking them questions like that. And so I sent it to the second coworker, and he gives me a list of prompts, and it's detective fiction. And I'm like, oh no, this is one of my most, I've got a whole bunch of gaps in my understanding of this type of storytelling. As much as I have enjoyed some stories, as much as I like reading some stories within that genre and stuff like that, and I like watching movies and TV shows that are mysteries and detectives and stuff like that, I like that, but I am not well read in that genre whatsoever, and I don't know the tropes, I don't know the story structure for those things. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do some research into this so that I can understand a little bit more about the story that I need to tell here. The story's been building in my mind, and it hasn't yet been, I haven't started putting pen to paper yet. That's the other thing. I'm doing this by hand. I'm writing this by hand because I'm finding that I'm trying it out to see if it helps my brain engage in the story creation process a little bit better than me coming home from sitting at a desk all day, and then I come home and sit on my computer and try and write. That has not been very good for me, for my writing, and I haven't made a whole lot of progress because of that. But so I decided let's try and write by hand a little bit and see if that helps. And so the first one, it worked so well, it's like, okay, let's try this again. Anyways, that led to this. And so when I say I haven't put pen to paper, it's both literal and figurative in relation to this story that's building up. But I do have the story percolating in my mind. I'm trying to get it wrapped down so that I can actually write it and figure out how it works. But through that process, one of the things that I did was I decided to listen to some detectives, some murder mysteries, some stuff like that, to see if I could get my mind open to understanding that world. I also watched a couple episodes of Sherlock, which is fantastic. I love that show. But so what I listened to, now we've finally come back to it, and my coworker actually recommended that I listen to or read some Edgar Allan Poe. And so I was like, okay, that's perfect. It's an author that I need to. I've read I've read Telltale Heart in the past. I believe I've read The Raven sometime in the past, but I think that's the only things that I've read of Poe's works. And so I was like, okay, I want to do some more. I want to read some more Poe. I know he's an author that I've known I wanted to read more by for a long time, and I just hadn't done it. So what I did is I looked through my library to see what they had available for me to listen to, and what they had was the Edgar Allan Poe audio collection, which includes Telltale Heart and The Raven again, which, side note, Raven is fantastic piece of poetry. That's just brilliant. All right, so let's see. It's got, I don't know what this first one is. All I'm seeing is the word to. I assume that's maybe it's like an introduction or a forward or something like that. But it has Alone, it has The City in the Sea, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Haunted Palace, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Mask of the Red Death, The Telltale Heart, The Black Cat, The Raven, The Facts of the Case of M. Valdemar, The Cask of Amontillado, The Bells, Annabelle Lee, El Dorado, Ligeia, The Imp of the Perverse, Morella, and Bernice and the Gold Bug. And so it's Berenice and the Gold Bug. So it's got a whole variety of different Poe stories, and most of them aren't murder mysteries or anything like that, but it was still helpful for me to understand kind of more the atmosphere of a Poe story than the structure of a detective murder mystery or anything like that. But it was also helpful in that it's teaching me more about short stories, and I like learning that as well. So yeah, I listened to that, and that was a whole lot of context to get to the point where I say what I thought about the book. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the going through Poe's works, going through these short stories, listening to them, trying to learn about them, enjoy them, understand them. It's fantastic. It was very good fun, and it was very creepy at times. There's some very weird stuff that goes on. And yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't have a whole lot more to say about that. I will do a review of this when I get there, just because I'm reviewing everything that I read, but yeah, fantastic. Very much enjoyed that, and it was different, but it was good research for me as well. Then I listened to Sherlock Holmes' Three Tales of Avarice, which is 3 Sherlock Holmes short stories. Let's see if I can find them. One of them was The Blue Carbuncle. I can't remember what the other 2 are. The Blue Carbuncle is one that I listened to several times as a kid, and so I kind of knew that story, and I just hadn't remembered it really well. But let's see if I can figure out what the 3 tales are that are in this. The Adventure of the Red-Headed League, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, and The Adventure of the Priory School, apparently. Does that sound right? I think so. I think that's right. And I like Sherlock Holmes. I like the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's works, but I've only previously read, well, I mean, other than when I would listen to several. The Speckled Band was another one that I listened to as a kid, and there was several that I listened to over and over as a kid. I recently, as a grown up, I've listened to The Hound of the Baskervilles and the first story, which was, if I can remember it, A Study in Scarlet. And I really enjoyed both of those. I enjoyed Study in Scarlet more than Hound of the Baskervilles, but I kind of saving Sherlock Holmes as kind of just when I want a mystery story and this is what's calling to me, that's when I'm going to pick it up. I'm not specifically focused on reading through the entire series or collection or anything like that. I picked these 3 up though, and again, as research, I really enjoyed them as research. As short stories, I really enjoyed them as short stories. But also, they're just good fun stories. I enjoyed listening to them. I enjoyed the stories that were being told. I enjoyed trying to understand the mystery. And of course, we can't pick out all of the details in order to understand how the conclusion is reached by Holmes. But that's because Holmes is seeing things that we're not seeing. He has a different background of information. His palette of information is different than ours is and stuff like that. But that's not because, all that to say that we could, if we had the same information that he has, we could also solve those mysteries. And I like seeing that. That's really fun for me. Yeah, I just enjoyed it, and I'm glad to have been able to go through that and do some research in the process. And so that's part of why I made it through 11 things in February. I finished up 11 books in February is because, let's see, The Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit is short. Edgar Allan Poe collection is short. Sherlock Holmes' Three Tales of Avarice is short. And so yeah, made good progress in those things. The next one that I listened to, wow, I am running long. So the next one that I listened to then is Lost Boys by Lost Boys or The Lost Boys. I think it's just Lost Boys by, I should know this author's name, Orson Scott Card. And this is one where actually Sam from I Samwise mentioned that he had read it and it was maybe his book of the year or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this one because it's a standalone by Card. I haven't read any Card previously. I didn't even read Ender's Game as a kid or a teenager or anything like that. And so I knew that it was a gap in my reading that I needed to fill. And I still need to go back and read Ender's Game at some point. But I picked this one up because it was a standalone, and I was like, okay, I'm curious. And it happened to be available from my library just when I wanted it and when I needed it. So I picked it up and was listening to it. I was like, this is really interesting. This is really kind of strange. I don't have any idea what genre this book falls into. And I got halfway through and I was like, I still have no idea what genre this falls into. I got like 75% and I was like, I still have no idea what genre this falls into. And I get to the end and I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it's kind of I still don't really know how to classify it very well, but the way that the story is constructed and everything is very interesting. And I was understanding what Card was doing with it. But I came away with some genres that it could be classified as definitely some supernatural, definitely some thriller vibes, a little bit of horror vibes to some degree. Very interesting way to tell a story, very family oriented, it's about a Mormon family and their life. The dad is a game developer or a software developer. It's an interesting story that's being told here going through the lives of this family and exploring their life and exploring the things going on around them and the dad's life, how that interacts, how his job is affecting his family and his relationship with his family and all that kind of stuff. So it's very personal, very intimate story in that sense, but it's also got this really weird supernatural-esque type story that's going on at the same time where we don't know, is this magic, is this real, is this hallucinations, what is going on here? And as you go through the story, it starts unraveling. It starts becoming a little bit more clear, but at the same time getting more convoluted, more confusing, and trying to understand all that's going on, trying to figure it out. And it happened to be a good addition to my study of detective fiction and what's going on with that and how to tell murder mystery stories and stuff like that. And I didn't know quite how the prologue was gonna, or the first chapter, I don't think it was a prologue, was going to fit into the rest of the story until things get resolved and revealed. And I understood, and throughout the book I was trying to figure out, okay, how does this relate? Who is this in reference to, and all that kind of stuff. And the way that it wraps up, there's some weird stuff that goes on in this book, but it is a very good story. I very much enjoyed the story. I don't think for me it's a top book that I've read. I don't think it's even going to be my favorite book of the month, but of the 11 that I finished, it is pretty high up on my ranking of the month. It is a good book. It's a very good book, very good story that's told, but very weird as well. I'm glad I read it. Very glad I read it. Very much enjoyed my time with it. Didn't have a bad time with it by any means. It was also weird, and I didn't know what to expect, and I am glad of that. And trying to put the pieces together, trying to figure out what all's going on, how is this all affecting. I could see some connections, but they didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense from a storytelling perspective how they were going to tie together. And I was like, that doesn't go with that. It was fun. It was a fun book to read, and it was a fun experience, but it also dark, creepy, disturbing, sad at times. It's a good experience, a good book. I'm glad that I read it. I got 2 more books. Finished up another series with this next one, which was The House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. This is the 3rd and final book in her Howl's Moving Castle series, and I'm very glad that I finished this up. I really enjoyed the first 2 books. Really enjoyed Howl's Moving Castle. Thought that was fantastic. Really loved that. I also then really enjoyed book 2, which was Castle in the Sky is book 2. And then I really enjoyed that one as well. It's very different from book 1. Very much feels like Jones had a story that she wanted to tell set in this world, but was not trying to write a sequel to Howl's Moving Castle. And I really appreciated that. I thought that was the right move on her part. And then again, with this 3rd one, The House of Many Ways, I thought it was going to be a little bit more connected to the first book than it was, but that's not to say that it wasn't connected. It was very connected still. Again, very good story was being told, a very interesting look into this world, kind of an exploration of a different side of this world that's being studied. And I really enjoyed it, really had a fun time with it. It's not a direct sequel to either of the previous 2, but it does tie into them, takes place chronologically after them. There's things that are referenced from the first 2 books that are back in this one and stuff like that. And it's just good. It's just fun. It's very enjoyable story. All 3 of the books are really good. They're all very different though, so I wouldn't compare them other than in their atmosphere. They all feel very similar. They all feel like they belong to the same world, to the same story, to the same author, to the same series, but that doesn't mean that they are the same story that's being told. And I'm very glad of that. I'm very glad that Jones chose to tell different stories with each of them. So yeah, very glad I did that, but also that means I wrapped up another series this year already, which let me double check my counting. And so that is the 3rd series that I've wrapped up, because the Leatherstocking Tales in January is one, then Burning White for Lightbringer in February, and then also The House of Many Ways in February. So having wrapped up 3 series already, it feels fantastic. I've made progress in several other series, as well as I've only started 1 new series this year so far, but there are 2 series technically, because Jackrabbit, Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit, is first in a series as well. That doesn't matter so much. Still, I feel very good. I feel like I'm making progress with the series like I've been trying to, and it feels great to have wrapped up that book as well. The last book that I listened to in February that I have finished is Daros by Dave Dobson. I listened to Kenai back in November or December, I believe it was, and really enjoyed Kenai. Really enjoyed a lot of what was going on there. It wasn't a favorite book of the month, but it was very enjoyable. I liked, of course, the references to Alaska. I liked seeing that and how that was incorporated and why it was chosen for what it was. I liked the concepts, the sci-fi concepts that Dobson was exploring in Kenai. And so I was thinking, okay, I liked Kenai quite a bit. I'm hoping that I will enjoy Daros as much as I did Kenai. And so I went into it, and it started, and It feels very similar in terms of writing style, in terms of his construction of the world and the universe. And I believe he's writing in a shared universe, not shared, but all of his books take place in the same science fiction universe, or at least these two did, is what it feels like, what it seems like from what I'm understanding. But they're completely standalone. They're completely separate. They just take place in this world that this greater universe that he's created. So that was kind of familiar because I'd already knew a little bit what to expect type thing. He does really good at creating alien races that feel not human, that interact in ways that don't seem human, that they have different ways of seeing the world, they have different ways of understanding people and things and other beings and stuff like that. And Dobson does a really good job with that. He also explores science fiction concepts a lot, which is what most sci-fi authors do. They explore concepts, and that can be fun. And so I went into it with those things, seeing those things immediately, but I felt like the book was dragging, and I wasn't enjoying my time nearly as much with Daros as I did with Kenai. It was kind of like, best I can describe it is that it was a book that was not for me. Not bad by any means. I definitely don't want to sound like it was a bad book, because it wasn't. It just was one that wasn't really working for me. Maybe it could have just been the time that I picked it up. I wanted to be reading something else or something, who knows. But I was excited to read it, and I went into it, and it kind of fell a little flat for me. Didn't seem like my type of book. Didn't really care for any of the characters, didn't really care for the story that was going on, didn't find it interesting as much as I appreciate seeing him write sci-fi races, alien races in the way that he does. I found that interesting. I thought that he does a good job with that, and I'm glad that it was so similar to Kenai in writing style and in atmosphere and the way that it all feels. It was familiar, but the story wasn't working for me. I did finish it. It's a fairly low, maybe like a 3.5 star for me. Not a waste of time by any means. Just one that wasn't really. I don't like using star ratings, but that's kind of above average, above middle of the road for me, but not something that I just heartily enjoyed. Definitely not as much as I enjoyed Kenai, which I did really enjoy. I would recommend other people try out both of these books, figure out which one works for you, because I think he's good. I think Dobson's a good author, and I definitely like supporting small self-published authors and stuff like that. And just this one didn't work as well for me. So that is the last book that I read in December. No, not in December, in February. And I've got ongoing reading. What are the things that I'm physically reading? I am physically reading Aurelia by Stephen R. Lawhead, or not physically reading, I'm e-reading Aurelia by Stephen R. Lawhead. I am physically reading Rada by Tracy M. Joyce, as well as my immersion read of Lord of the Rings. I'm currently on The Two Towers. I haven't quite finished it up. That is audio at the same time as physical. So I'm doing that. And then my audiobook for when I'm at work, I picked up on Friday the second book in the Dreamer duology, so Muse of Nightmares. I'm trying to wrap that series up. It's a duology. I can get through that and wrap it up quickly. So I'm finishing up another series with that one, and that's my current audiobook listen. So far enjoying all of those. Strange the Dreamer, or Muse of Nightmares, the sequel to Strange the Dreamer is the first book, is a book that it's not written for me as a reader. There's some cool things about it, some things that I'm definitely enjoying about it, as I did with book one. But the book itself I'm not the target audience for the book. And I can feel that in the way that it's written, in the way that the story is being told. That's all right. I'm still happy to read it and finish it up, and I'm glad that I'm able to do that. I don't really have thoughts about anything else. I haven't really made a whole lot of progress. Aurelia is fantastic. Really enjoying that. That is my February wrap-up. This has been a long wrap-up. 11 books is a lot to talk about, and that puts me, because I read 9 in January, that puts me at 20 books already read in the first 2 months of 2026. It's a fantastic reading year already. Fantastic start to the reading year, and I don't expect it to get worse. I doubt that I'll have that high of numbers every month this year, but I do expect to keep my reading consistent, and that's 20 books already is a lot. I'm more than happy with that for sure. I'm going to wrap this up because this has been a long video, a long wrap up. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay well.